A while ago, during a consultation session, a government officer from Bangladesh contacted me regarding higher studies abroad. He was genuinely serious about pursuing a research based master's or PhD program overseas. He already had work experience, motivation, and a long term goal. But then he told me something that honestly represents the frustration of thousands of applicants every year. He said, "I've emailed hundreds of professors already, but I'm barely getting any replies." And the interesting thing is that this problem is much more common than people think. Many students and professionals believe their biggest weakness is low CGPA, lack of publications, or average IELTS scores. But after looking at some of the emails he had been sending, I realized the biggest issue was not necessarily his profile. The problem was the email strategy itself. Most of the emails looked extremely generic. The subject lines were things like "need PhD opportunity," "seeking scholarship," or "interested in graduate admission." Now think about it from a professor's perspective. Professors receive hundreds of emails every week from students around the world. If your email looks exactly like every other email sitting in their inbox, why would they feel interested enough to even open it? One of the biggest mistakes applicants make is failing to create a strong first impression immediately. Instead of showing research connection, they start with long self-introductions, such as "My name is I am from Bangladesh," or "I completed my degree from," but most of those details are already visible in the CV and email signature. The first few lines of an email should not feel repetitive. They should create relevance. Imagine the difference between a generic email and a line like this. "I recently read your 2025 paper on soil carbon dynamics, and I found your methodology on residue interaction particularly interesting." That single sentence immediately changes the tone of the email. Now the professor understands that this student actually spent time reading the research instead of randomly mass emailing hundreds of faculty members. And honestly, that is the real purpose of a cold email. It is not about begging for funding. It is not about copy-pasting the same template to 300 professors. It is not about writing your entire life story in 3 paragraphs. The real purpose is to create intellectual and research connection. Professors want to see whether your interests align with their ongoing work, whether you understand their research direction, and whether you could realistically fit into their lab environment. That research fit matters far more than many applicants realize. Another common mistake is bringing up funding immediately in the very first email. Of course, funding is important, especially for international students. But if the first thing you ask is, "Can you fund me?" before creating any academic connection, the conversation often dies immediately. Building communication with a professor works a little like building trust in real life. Interest and relevance usually come first. Deeper discussions happen later. At the same time, many students underestimate the importance of a focused and professional CV. Even a decent email can lose impact if the attached CV looks disorganized, overloaded, or poorly structured. One more thing people should understand is that professors are genuinely busy. Sometimes even strong emails get missed. That is why sending one polite follow-up after around 7 to 10 days is completely reasonable. But after that, it is often better to move on professionally rather than repeatedly sending messages. At the end of the day, one thing is very clear. If you are emailing professors without reading their recent papers, checking their lab website, or understanding their current projects, your email will most likely remain just another cold email inside a crowded inbox. And in today's highly competitive world of higher studies abroad, cold emails rarely create warm opportunities.